Hello again and welcome to another episode of In Conversation. My name is Mpiletso Motumi and today I am honored to be in the presence of accounting royalty. Joining me today is Prof. Wiseman and Nkuhlu, who just recently received an honorary doctorate from the University of Johannesburg, as well as Prof. Tankiso, Moloi, who is the Dean of our College of Business and Economics, and also Prof. Marx, who is the head of our UJ School of Accounting. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Our conversation today promised to be one that is enlightened and thought-provoking, and will focus on accounting, professional growth, thought leadership, as well as higher education. All right, to get things started,
Thank you.
let's go right into it. Congratulations, Prof, once again, for the honorary doctorate.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to the university.
Wonderful. Just to begin, as someone who's obviously a leader in accounting education, how do you define thought leadership and what role does it play in shaping the future of business and accounting?
Yes, thought leadership plays a very important role in terms of introducing new insights and innovative ways of looking at a field of study. Mm-hmm. So really, to me, a thought leader is someone who is an expert in his or her field and also is involved in actually challenging his field or her field and coming up with innovative ideas as well as new insights. A good example that I can share with you so that people could understand. In the corporate governance space, we are very proud of Professor Mervyn King, for instance, because he tackled something that we thought the ideas and definitions were well established. We all knew that, leadership of a company was there to service primarily shareholders, maximize shareholders' value.
Yes.
He came with this idea that, no, this can't be right. This can't be right. A leader of a business, the role of business cannot be just to maximize shareholder value. He came with this idea of a much larger number of stakeholders, that companies have a responsibility to actually provide value and see themselves as accountable to a much broader range of stakeholders. That was revolutionary. So I'm just citing that as an example of thought leadership in something that is well established.
Yes.
It's also true in leadership. We talk about leadership as if leadership is one definition. But if one looks at it, the traditional understanding of a leader is that it's somebody who has got authority, who holds others accountable, who has got control over them, has got power over them. But of late, that thinking is really old-fashioned. When we talk about leadership, we talk about people who are inspired by a bigger purpose, and those that they try then to motivate those who follow them to be motivated by the same big purpose, not use authority or controls or threat of discipline to get them to comply. So to me, those are good examples of thought leadership, where ideas or understanding of a subject or a field was thought to be well established, but new leaders came along and provided new insights, and that brought in a new understanding and a new world.
Okay. Are there perhaps any leaders that maybe off the top of your head now you would say actually exemplify that kind of thought leadership?
Oh, well, I've mentioned, Mervyn King.
Yes.
But in the private sector, if you look at big businesses, or whether you're talking Bill Gates, they come up with, especially, when you think of Apple, the idea that computers were these big, huge things that IBM used to really be known for. And that was that thing. If you are going to be a successful computer business, you have to have capacity and technology to produce huge computers. And then this young man came around and said, this is crazy. I'm going to come up with a laptop and something even smaller. So there are examples like that.
Yeah.
I think it is thought leadership that has really enabled us as humanity to break new grounds, you know, because otherwise there's a tendency that sometimes when technologies are well established, complacency tends to creep in, and people think that if I want to be this industry, I must just do things better than IBM or something like that. But to think of saying, I'm going to revolutionize the industry and do something that IBM has never thought of, it's something that really takes us to a new era, new way of thinking. So there are many examples like that. I mean, what we're going to, even today we talk about 4IR, artificial intelligence also, it's just that kind of thinking.
Absolutely.
And we thought that internet was well established. We thought everything, there could be nothing better than that. But thought leaders came in and they innovated and they came with new insights and they came with new knowledge altogether.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. Prof. Moloi, you have extensive experience in strategy, execution, and governance. What do you believe are the key qualities of an effective leader in today's fast-evolving business landscape?
No, thank you for the question. So then let me congratulate the Prof. Once again, congratulations, Prof. We are very happy to have you as a recipient of the honorary doctorate, so particularly in the School of Accounting and the College of Business and Economics. So we appreciate that you accepted our offer. Good question that you're asking. So I was just listening to the Prof here, talking about the opening up of the area that was kind of limited to shareholders. Just before I answer my question, so then in the past, so then just shareholder value now move to the stakeholder value. So from the research perspective, for quite a long time, so then our base theory in auditing had always been the agency theory. So then with the opening up, so then to say we've got to look at the stakeholders, then we move to the stakeholder theory. We move to the enlightened stakeholder theory, etc., and these other theories, which shows that so when things happen in the private space, so they kind of move and they find expression so in the academic space. So then, which is what we've seen with the theories evolving. So from that agency theory to the stakeholder theory that we kind of use a lot now. So in the field. So then, just coming back to the qualities of a leader.
Yes.
So maybe in the fourth industrial revolution or in the era that we're living in. So from where I sit, so when I was younger, I read an interesting book that was talking about the outliers. So then I was sitting there thinking that I've got to be an outlier. So then I've got to be good in what I do. So in the book, so they talk about the 10,000-hour rule. So you've got to do the 10,000-hour rule to be an outlier or to be good in what you're doing. So which meant that you kind of needed to be good in what you're doing. So then a shift. So then like a couple of years ago, about 2-3 years ago, then I read a book that's quite interesting. So it says, why do generalists often triumph over the guys that specializes? And then the author starts making the case to say, like if you look at the skills in the fourth industrial revolution, so the skills in the era that we kind of live in, so then they just keep on changing again and again. So you've got to learn and unlearn, learn and unlearn and learn and unlearn. So then you end up being a generalist than being, good in kind of one thing. So what are the qualities of a leader, a good leader? So then in the fourth industrial revolution, so a lifelong learner. So then that I'll put it top. So then you've got to be a lifelong learner. So you've got to understand the world. So then this kind of changing world. So we're not saying that you need to code, you need to understand, so you just need to understand how AI will impact your organization, so how AI will impact what you are doing, so how technologies of the future will impact what you're doing. So top from me, so it's lifelong learning. So then, like for instance, as Jet Li puts it, so then you must be formless. So then you must assume formless. So he uses the example of water. So he says if you take water, you put it in the cup, it becomes a cup. So if you take water, you throw it on the ground, so it dissipates. You don't. So you must be formless. You must assume formlessness, but also you must participate. So then, you must participate and understand what's going on. So then the qualities of a good leader would be lifelong learning, just be formless, and then the continued contribution and presence in the space.
Okay. All right. So basically, also just being able to be adaptable and
Exactly.
malleable and sort of go with the flow of how things are coming at you.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Prof. Marx, you've been recognized for your impact on education and transformation in the accounting profession. What challenges do you think business and accounting leaders face today, and how can they overcome them?
Thank you for that question. Thanks for being here, and thanks in the presence of greatness with the professors here next to me. It's an honor. I think a business leader, and especially an accounting leader, we live in an interesting world. We live in interesting times. We live in challenging times. But there's also opportunities. And we live in a fast evolving world where instance has become the new norm. I mean, Prof. Nkuhlu was referring to the internet. I mean, I remember when I was a young lecturer at the university, the internet and it was phenomenal. We didn't notice. I mean, the world has changed. I mean, a telephone these days on your desk is something that's almost unheard of, because the world has changed so much. So the world has changed a lot, and accounting business leaders, I think the most important part is the challenge is to be adaptable to the change, to understand how it's changing. But in an accounting field, for example, the technical side of the accounting field is changing day by day. If you're taking the accounting standards, the environmental standards, taxation, it's evolving on a continuous basis, and it has become almost impossible to be a master of all. So you can be an enabler of the knowledge, but you need to stay adaptable. You need to stay up to speed. So the technical side of the business has changed a lot. So has the technological side. I mean, technology is just evolving day by day, and if you don't adapt to that, you're gonna be left behind. I think, and it's something accountants might not be known for, and accounting leaders, or not usually, but the emotional side of the business, because the world has become fast. It has become, and it hasn't been traditionally part of the schooling of an accounting leader, but accounting leaders are the champions of business. And to be able to recognize what impacts the performance of a business, but what also impacts the performance of your staff, your internal stakeholders, your external stakeholders, is part of this evolving world. So talking about accounting leaders, it's just much more than accounting and accounting related skills. It's becoming, you need to be agile. You need to be adaptable. You need to be strong-minded, and over and above, I mean, the world has many challenges, and you need to be an ethical, critical thinking leader that can apply yourself, that can evaluate, but always maintaining the highest of ethics, because there's so much pressure on leaders to perform and to lead business that they might sometimes stray, as we've seen in the past, and to always maintain that ethics, being technically sound and keeping in touch with the changing world will, I think, be the biggest challenge, and that will be the best way to overcome it. Be aware, be business acumen. I mean, it's so critical, and something we are pushing so hard at university, because you must be aware what's going on in the world, globally, locally, in business, inside your industry, outside your industry, because that will make you an enabler and will differentiate you in the world of work.
There's just no silos anymore. You can't
There's no
just sort of
silos.
focus on what you're doing here.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it affects you everywhere. I think we can just carry on this leadership conversation as well as continue with the future of accounting and business. Technology is rapidly changing industries, as we have discussed. How do you see artificial intelligence, blockchain, and big data analytics reshaping leadership in accounting and business, Prof? Moloi?
Yeah. So then maybe we can start with the sort of blockchain
Yes.
technology,
No problem.
and before we go to AI and data analytics. By the way, so then if you kind of look at AI, so just before I go to blockchain or so, you know, they would argue that you have the artificial general intelligence or so, then the AGI. So then where we are hoping to get, so if you know, just follow a lot of guys, you know, hoping to get to that artificial general intelligence where the machines can do without us instructing it to do anything. So, but just right now also, then if you just go to a subset of artificial intelligence called the machine learning or so, then that's where you plug it, you bring it closer to data analytics. So then the machine learning is that type of AI that relies on the data. So that's where we kind of would analyze data and then, you know, figure out the trends and then try to make some predictions as to, you know, what's going to happen. So how's the business going to look like? The Prof was talking about that a bit earlier. So let's just go to the one that I kind of, you know, have more interest in the rest of the blockchain technology. So the blocks, so in the chain, so then the people in the chain, so and then the cryptography, so in and around the chain. So then where I see it, you know, becoming more important is that if, for instance, so then I'll just step off accounting, so then just maybe go farming as an example. So if I do not want to buy any product that I do not know where it comes from or so, then I can go back to the source. So then through blockchain, go back to the source and see, this farm that produced this food, so, you know, was ethical. The Prof was talking about ethics, was ethical. So it didn't hire, you know, employees at low rates, etc., etc. So I can be able to go back, so let's say maybe using my phone, and then, you know, then seeing where the product originated. So if I do not want a product that came from, let's say, a certain country or so, then through some of these technologies, so I can be able to, you know, see that. But then we move to accounting and finance, like places like kind of, you know, insurance, so in the insurance space. So then you can be able to kind of sell the insurance from block to block, from that, you know, that node to the other node, and then everyone is kind of in, you know, in the system. So then no one can get into the block and change. So then the beauties of blockchain, so you can't immute, you can't go in, so if you're not part of the chain and change the things. So then which becomes important to what the Prof is doing, so then auditing. So because you can't change the numbers if you're not part of, you know, not part of that ecosystem or so, then like everyone so in the block would have to agree that you are changing this now. So if you are changing this, then I disagree, it's not similar to what I had, then I say no, then you block that particular thing. So that's basically where I see, you know, technologies such as blockchain playing a role in what we do. So then technologies such as AI, then specifically, so as I explained, machine learning also, then, you know, then in management accounting, so as you do, you know, a lot of data for the boards, so a lot of reports for the boards. So then, like, if you go to Python as an example or so, then you feed in your data in Python or so, it then tends to produce some very nice analysis, very nice, you know, the trends, etc., very nice predictions also. You can be able to tell the business that you are here now, and then based on the historical performance, and this is where you could be. So I see like machine learning, so then being used in the subsets such as management accounting for reporting, for trying to figure out the projections, et cetera, et cetera. So then I see also then, so then in other spaces like text, so if you kind of read now the literature, so then where they've kind of, big companies have used robotic process automation, so in the Middle East and in the US, to try and do the text part of part of things. So there is a role of these technologies. So what we know right now is that they're effective, and then they're efficient in terms of time, and then they are less, like if you take the RPA, the robotic process automation, or so, they tend to be less prone to errors than humans. Of course, then I think what we've seen, like with the likes of ChatGPT and the DeepSeek. So if you've seen the new DeepSeek also, and they do so then go haywire. So then they do their own things, but they have a role. They tend to be efficient. So then compared to human beings. But then, Prof, I'm not saying that because like the minute you say they tend to be efficient compared to human beings also, then people start getting worried that we're going to be replaced by machines. And
Yes.
so then we see, so then like, as I open my machine, by the way, every day, so it now talks about Copilot. So do I want Microsoft to Copilot with me on the day or so? I see these technologies co-piloting with us as we do our tasks. So some of the things I don't have to do them themselves, myself, for instance. So then I just type an email a little bit, then it finishes it for me. Then it kind of reads my mind.
Okay.
So I see them in that space.
All right, so we can confidently say machine learning and AI is not here to take the human's work away. It's here to complement and help and make us work better.
Yeah, so then assuming that we don't get to that space of general intelligence, so then, because that's, if you just try to read, etc., so then what is that artificial general intelligence? So then if we get to that space, probably then you start getting worried. But with what we have right now, so it continues to improve and gets better, etc., etc. So I'm happy to see that we're co-piloting.
Okay. All right. No, thank you so much. If we just go back, Prof. Marx, to you speaking on ethical leadership, especially in finance and governance, what practical steps can business and accounting leaders take to uphold ethics and integrity in corporate decision making?
I think ethics is embedded in you, and you must have ethical leaders setting the tone, and you need to live up to that standards. And we've got the excellent examples next to me. But I mean, we can teach ethics at a university, and all the professional bodies have ethics codes, but it's still a textbook being taught.
Yes.
If people don't embrace it and make it their own and live the values, it can still just be a script. So it is important, and there's certain rules, the professional guidance that's been spelled out through all the professional bodies, how to treat client information, how to do it. And those are rules, but I mean, when behind closed doors, what you do is what will be the ethical values. And I think especially at the university level, is to lead by example, but expose people to ethical conduct and unethical conduct in a business environment. I was talking about business acumen, and by looking at examples of best practice, Prof. Wiseman was talking about corporate governance and ethical leadership. And if we just look and we read what's happening in the world, there's excellent examples of ethical leadership, which you can learn through case studies. But there's unfortunately also examples of not so great ethical leadership, and to take the lessons and learn from that. But I want to make it practical, because if you make it a textbook exercise, it's something somebody will study and they will forget it. If you make it something that's embedded in what everybody do, think, and sleep, it must just be part of the DNA of a student, of a professional, of a business leader. And so it's to creating the value, one the awareness, one the principles, and then make it part of your DNA.
Okay, all right. Yes, Prof, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, yes. You know, Professor Ben, no, I agree with you 100%. But this remains a big challenge. You know, the question of the drivers of our behaviors. You know, in the environment in which we live today, one finds that the desires of young people, everyone, are really influenced by social media, by TV and all that. We all learn to aspire to have the best clothes, the best cars, the best TVs and all that. And also a tendency to say, I must stay safe. You know, let me not take a stand against the majority, what tends to be popular. I go with the crowds. So all those things promote self-interest and really, when you think about things that will give you happiness, you think about things that will enable you to satisfy these desires. We don't talk enough about the fact that as human beings, we are not really, historically, we don't get complete satisfaction from just satisfying those desires for money, for satisfy our hunger, for clothes or self-preservation. We get also really satisfaction and pride when we're respected by other human beings, when we are esteemed by other human beings. So this thing of building self-esteem of our leaders, of our professionals, how do we, in addition to the forces that they know, they are under this pressure in the environment to be driven by these desires to get all the good things that everybody wants. But we say to them, yeah, that chasing those things will never give you contentment as a human being. Human being, you are more than that. What will give you contentment is when you are respected by other human beings. And because what makes other people respect you is, say, for instance, when you are a professor of accounting, they know that they know about your capacity and competencies, but above all, they know that you uphold the highest standards of ethics, and that to maintain your position as professor is because whatever you do must be guided by those high ethical standards. The day you deviate from that, you are found to have allowed a student to cheat, or you have allowed a paper to leak or something like that. That's the end of you as a professor. You must esteem your position as professor in such a way that you cannot do anything that could cause you disgrace or cause you lose the respect of people as a professor. So this is the thing, and we are struggling with that. People can become technical competence is a non-negotiable. If you are going to be a professional, you must be highly technical competent. And the difficult side is this thing that, given this force of these desires that seem to determine how people behave. Our politics are in the mess they are because we're driven by just desire to acquire more wealth and so on and so on. How do we stop that? Yes. How do we instill in people this self-esteem that is anchored in something that is bigger, that would enable you to really value that pride, that respect by other people to such an extent that you will be able to tame the desire for that. We're struggling with that. In our teaching, I believe that we must bring those components in that and see how we can actually In the book that I've just written, I've spent a few pages talking about personal mastery and saying that, possibly including in the training of leaders, focusing that really we must equip aspiring leaders with much more ability to take control of themselves, and really understand that much as the environment has got all these temptations, they are endowed by God with independent will that enables them to choose to say no, even if that pressure is there. So in our education, this is what we're going to be debating. We're going to be talking about the leaders. So it goes beyond the intellectual understanding of ethics. This is what Professor Marx is grappling with. You can teach students this ethics, these independence principles, and so on. They can go and write the correct answers, but you send them out there, and you subject them to a real life situation. They fail. So we want how do we get that right?
Yes, I think that
they just only pass the exams because intellectually they understand what ethics is all about. But how do we get it deep inside their consciences and in their sense of self-esteem?
That actually then leads me to my next question about higher education and professional growth. With you having been instrumental in shaping accounting education, what changes do you believe are sort of necessary in business and accounting curriculums to perhaps seek to sort out, produce future-ready graduates?
Yeah,
And
I think the first thing that is a non-negotiable is that as we make this progress in science and technology, the education must be on top of that, must enable to master and be comfortable to live in that world. But as Professor Tankiso has pointed out, Professor Ben has also made the same point. There's so much to learn these days. You cannot be a master of everything. But for me, I believe that to have this deep sense of self-esteem and self-pride, which enables you to withstand these temptations, you must be an expert in something. I think that's the first thing. So this education that we're doing, it's going to be very important that we encourage youngsters to try and to get to the top of their disciplines. So for me, that's a source of deep pride. And then we have got that. You will be stronger in resisting the temptations that come from this pressure to satisfy the self. That is the first thing. The second thing, of course, is what I said earlier on about in the education, find new ways or more effective ways of making aspiring accountants, professional accountants, understand the importance of their profession in society, the unique role that they have to satisfy in society, and take and derive pride in being in an advantaged, privileged position, to be the only few. If you can talk any profession here, even a chartered accountant, just think of it. Out of the population of South Africa, I doubt, Professor, do we have 50,000 chartered accountants?
I think, almost.
Out of 60 million people? Think of that. Yeah, I'm sure you can say the same thing. Think of artificial intelligence. How many professors are there out of 60 million? Just understanding that and deriving pride from that, and understand that you cannot sacrifice this thing just because there's 10,000 on the table or something like that. We get that self-esteem and pride in our role in society deeper inside, and derive more contentment from that, and make sure that in whatever way we conduct ourselves, we will not put ourselves in a situation where we are disgraced, we are found not to be worthy to hold the titles that we hold, whether you are registered auditor, you are a registered engineer, or you are a professor of a university. You must have the pride must be deeply ingrained in your DNA conscience to do everything possible to make sure that you are worthy of the respect that goes with that title or qualification.
All right. Prof. Marx, how do you sort of then ingrain that in students that you've mentored and other students as well? How does mentorship sort of play a role in that space?
I think mentorship has got a critical role to play. And the way I see it, there's two types of mentor. If I call it two types. And it's adding on to what Professor Wiseman has said. You can mentor so many people personally on a time basis. I mean, if you have 500 students in your class, individually mentoring 500 students might not be possible because of the time constraint. You do mentor people individually, whether it's a student, whether it's a colleague, whether it's a friend, and providing guidance, be there for mental support, be there as a soundboard, providing, sometimes critical judgment and advice. So that's your direct mentorship is going. But I want to call indirect mentorship by setting the example, by leading and knowing that people will look at you, and the tone that you set is for me so critical. And I take myself in life. There's many people that don't know that I are my mentors without even knowing it. But you look up and you see and you observe. And when you question yourself, you say, what would I have done in this situation? And that's sort of your guide in life. I mean, because sometimes you do encounter difficulty. We're human. We can. Sometimes you doubt yourself, and then if you have somebody to look up to and say, what would have Prof. Wiseman, what would Prof. Tankiso have done in this situation? And you then self-reflect and you say, what are my guiding principles? And if you can instill that through being who you are and setting that example, I think that's the role we can play. And so you can reach many more. And we are blessed to have having those leaders in our society, and two sitting next to me, and many in the country. And I think it's getting an awareness of people to look up and to listen and to reflect.
Absolutely, sure. Prof. Moloi, perhaps you can also add a bit more on that mentorship, but also tell us, as the Dean of CBE, what opportunities does UJ offer students to develop their own leadership skills beyond the classroom?
No, thanks. So Prof. Ben and Prof. Wiseman have touched on key important things, so in my opinion. So then, Prof, you're talking about this indirect mentorship. So I was chatting to someone, and then they said to me, see, the unfortunate part is that we actually do not have a lot of people that we can look up to. So then that's why most people would, deviate and do their own things. So it's just important to continue building and creating this cord of people that we can look up to. So then the people that will inspire us. So then and help us, as the Prof was saying. So then if we face a certain situation, so you ask yourself, if this particular person had faced this particular situation, what would they do? So we just need a lot of people. So then that can inspire us and we can look up to. And I was just chatting also to the former Vice Chancellor, Prof. Marwala. Then he raised the same point at some point, I think, in our engagement, that must have been 2019. He said, I think I was asking him a question or so, and like I was in my 30s. And he says, no, you see, the biggest injustice in South Africa is that there aren't so many mentors. So then we're discussing that thing. So then, Prof, so what you've just said now, direct and indirect influencers. So then become important. So maybe this word influencers, social media influencers, maybe behavioral influencers also, then it's what we need to try and pursue. What is UJ doing in terms of leadership skills for its students? So then, like, we've started now, so at CB, but there is a lot of work that has been done at UJ. But with the bringing Prof Wiseman to be closer to us, so then we are intending, at least in the School of Accounting, to use Prof Wiseman to share his experiences so then with our students. So one of the things that Prof Ben and I discussed later last year, around October or November, Prof, was that for each and every school within the College of Business and Economics, then we have the business leaders, so that will sit and become the board of that particular school also. Then we can bring those people to class time and again to offer the guest lectures, and then we can open up the channels for these people to be, to advise, whether directly or indirectly, give advice to our students. So UJ is doing a lot of work. So I think of my time at JPS, for instance. So we had what is called UJ Youth or Young Leadership Development Program. So then where they identify future leaders, and then they will expose these leaders to university leadership as well as external leadership, and then they will go through some leadership theories also. So then it's part and parcel of the work that's taking place at UJ. Then last week, or last week, interestingly, so then for women leadership, so then Dr. Ronelle Turin had organized a conference then that she called the Women of Stature. And then I asked her, I said, well, but I see some males here. What is going on? And then, interestingly, she says to me, it is important to bring in males when women issues are being discussed. That was just profound for me. So in that group also, it was basically what she calls women of stature. It's actually your first and second year students, so that are mentoring their peer mentors. They're mentoring the first years that I knew, and the third years are mentoring the second years. So we're using students to learn from each other, but also then when we get the opportunity, the opportunity to bring in people like Prof Wiseman, also, and we bring them to to help our students. So just one last one, so that now that I have this opportunity, so the College of Business and Economics is launching its own executive leadership program. So then, like some of these things that we're discussing here, things about ethical leadership, leadership in the 21st century, as Prof Nkuhlu is talking about, direct and indirect mentorship, as Prof Ben is saying. So these are things that we want to build in some of these programs, and these programs will be led by our academics internally, but also the people of stature that we pick up in the private sector and in government. So we'll be calling them to lead in some of these programs.
All right, well, thank you so much. And I think now we can just wind down our conversations to some student-focused and career questions that we can also answer. Many students worry about transitioning from university to the workforce. What are the most in-demand skills employers look for in young professionals today? Prof. Marx, do you want to take that?
I'll start off. I think you need to be technically sound, because it's important to be an expert.
Yes.
So you need to study hard, work hard, but then to be a well-rounded professional as well. Business acumen, critical thinking, ethical leadership. And then, position yourself to when you go to the world of work, that you can hit the ground running, and that you know how to read the room, if I can call it that. And I don't know how to put it differently, but you come in there and you are able to talk to the CEO, you are able to talk to your peer. And when you go to a client, those soft skills over and above the technical skills have for long been neglected. And that does make a difference. And Prof Wiseman was talking earlier about Prof Tankiso, technology. You need to be an enabler of technology. You will maybe come across somebody who's your peer, who might not have that same technical knowledge, but you need to be able to communicate your technical knowledge in a professional manner, to not to offend. And sometimes, because of the environment we live in, because of social, you might tell somebody, sorry, your calculation is wrong. I do not agree with this. And that might be a career limiting move. Whereas if you use a different tone, and I'm just using a simple example,
Yes.
just saying, let's look at your tax calculation. Maybe we need to just consider making these adjustments. Can advance your career so much more than to break it down. So it's a well-rounded professional,
Yes.
being aware of it, and reaching further than just the technical.
Would you say that perhaps those soft skills can help maybe then graduates that are maybe struggling to find work in this competitive job market? What sort of skills should they maybe present?
I mean,
possibly, Prof. along, just continuing on the same lines. Our young people grow up in a difficult environment, very complex environment. They grow up hearing the stories that there's corruption all around them. They go out possibly hearing also that these university graduates are worth nothing. We have to retrain them when they go to when we employ them. Some employers say that. So this issue of helping the students with what I would call a rounding up in their final year, in addition to the subjects that they take, this exposure to in a form of mentorship, group form, by people who have got business experience. Just again saying, yes, we're aware how difficult things are out there, but you know what? You can make it. This country has got great opportunities, and of course, has got more opportunities than the bad things or risks that people talk about. So, in the conversations that I'm sure Prof. Tankiso has got in mind, is having those conversations. That you know what, when, for instance, we are in a country like South Africa, with high levels of poverty, unemployment, and so on, but at the same time, you have access to technologies that the world has never had before. So it's a question of connecting the two. So poverty and unemployment or underdevelopment is plenty of opportunities, provided you can harness those technologies. So it's just getting the students to be inspired and feel confident and really look for opportunities and not get in there defeated already. That they are in a country that has no growth, high unemployment, there are no opportunities for them. So there's nothing to achieve because there are no opportunities. So really we must work on those things, and I like the initiatives that the College of Business and Economics is embarking upon, and I would gladly play a role in that, because we have got a great country, great opportunities, and underdevelopment actually means that you have plenty of opportunities, especially when through education you can equip people in an underdeveloped environment with technologies that are first class, world class technologies. You bring them here to come and deal with those things. So we're very, the young graduates are coming to the market at a great time of great opportunities. We must just make them appreciate that and equip them appropriately so that they can go and prosper.
Right. I mean, speaking on opportunities, Prof. Moloi, say for instance, a student decides they'd like to go and start their own business, for instance. What sort of financial and leadership principles should they keep in mind?
So interesting question. So then I'll just I'll just leave it to Prof. Nkuhlu also, because he's done a lot of this.
Okay.
What we're doing now, so then particularly in the School of Business Management, so then we are letting students to start businesses whilst in class, and then through the TTO office. So then if there is any invention that happens there, so then that IP gets registered. So then they kind of get supported. So then there is a gentleman, so then who's a lecturer in the Department of Business Management also. So he's able to go out there and source funding for these students to support their businesses. And then there is another lecturer, Prof. So then in the Department of Supply Chain and Transport Management, who's got into one of the sitters, and she kind of got, I think, a couple of millions to support 5 or 6 students. As they build their businesses, they get to be paid a salary so that they don't go and drop these businesses. So then they continue to build these businesses, but I mean, they get paid a salary, so then a stipend that comes from the sitter. So I just think some of initiatives such as that, it kind of moves the discussion. So this theory, the conceptual things, so beyond the class, so they are actually are doing. So for me, so then there was a concept, so that universities were, were working on, so in other faculties called work integrated learning. So this becomes the work integrated learning. So then practiced. So what Prof. Ben was talking about, and then what Prof. Nkuhlu was talking about, rounding up. So then how do you expose these students? What soft skills do you kind of give them? So then such exposure to those businesses, them becoming CEOs at a young age, then making mistakes with these businesses are failing, and then they have the opportunity to earn the salary, then revive the business. So then that then becomes important to me. So then you ask the question, so then when I sit in some of these small business think tanks, etc., etc., so I always say, I mean, you must look for the need. So when I advise students, so we must look for the need. What does your community need? So then can you supply it? So then that's basically, how you are able to run a business that is sustainable. So identify the need and then try to close that gap. So we do that so much in research. What's the problem? You identify the problem, think of the objectives and the research questions, you plug the problem. So in business, so what does the community need? What does the society need? Or so then you kind of, close that gap by, dealing with the things that the community needs. Prof, do you want to add?
Thank you.
No, thank you. But first of all, I just mentioned that, these ideas that the university is actually implementing here, I'm involved in another initiative to introduce them at the high school level. And because in the longer term, I believe that we must start working on the mindsets and confidence of young people, not when they arrive at university, but at the schools, primary school, high schools. We are experimenting, we are piloting a concept of a 3-stream curriculum in the East Rand. It's a concept that has been approved by the Gauteng Department of Education, and even the National Department of Education is beginning to embrace that. The idea is that some schools be equipped to actually make sure that by the time that a learner completes grade 12, he, in addition to obtaining a certificate to go to a university, he at least has got another certificate of technical competence. They will be encouraged to do plumbing, to do electricity, to do coding and robotics, to do accounting, bookkeeping, accounting at that level. So that by the time that a learner completes standard 12, he or she has got an accredited qualification in one of those skills. So for me, I think that combination of not training only the minds but also the hands, and you develop, you change the mindset so that people, by the time they come to university, they are comfortable in using both their hands and their minds. Because when you go out there, it's important that you become comfortable to, if you are going to be a successful engineer or a computer scientist, if you are going to be an inventor, you can't be an inventor because you are a great mathematician. You also be an inventor because you are comfortable in working with your hands and making things. So this is great that this is happening. Entrepreneurship is being supported at the university level. But as I say, in the longer term, we must address this real structural constraint to us not being able to produce entrepreneurs in this country. Is because we fail at the early stages to introduce learners to things that are critical in them being successful entrepreneurs later on. If you this plumbing I'm talking about, this electricity, this coding and robotics, agriculture, we combine it with entrepreneurship. So at the end, it's an integrated thing. So that, but if a learner, for instance, is doing agriculture at grade 10, 11, 12, one of the things that we try and achieve is to get a private sector company to provide the school with a tunnel, possibly 2 tunnels. They grow their spinach, they grow their cauliflower, they grow their carrots, and so on, and they learn. And then we teach them how to grow the crops and also vegetables, and also sell them to the community. Okay. So, as a university, we can provide much more intellectual support to the development of this integrated way of preparing youngsters for real life, opportunities.
Yes.
So the much as, So because this kind of thing that I'm talking about, if we're going to make sure that more and more schools are able to offer 3 curriculum. The training of teachers must be at the universities.
Exactly.
Universities must change the way that they train teachers.
Yes.
So we're on the great opportunities. We must we as the leaders, be much more committed and inspired to really break new ground.
No, absolutely. So grassroots foundation phase will then make sure that success is found. All right. And then networking is also key to career success, Prof. Marx. What strategies can students use to build meaningful professional connections while still studying?
I think they must use every opportunity available. And they must use the opportunities that's being brought to them. So we are very actively working on bringing industry to the university, to the classrooms, through various projects, through guest speakers, through initiatives, through career opportunities. But whenever there's a stakeholder there, whenever there's an employer there, go and introduce yourself, listen actively, participate in conversations, but then also market yourself. Don't be shy. Sometimes we are. Don't be arrogant, but be self-confident and speak up and carry yourself with presence. Something what a large part of developing these skills we're talking about is through projects and through case studies, projects, simulations, etc. And when you do that, use that opportunities. Make contact with. If you were to do a research on companies on the JSE, and you read those integrated reports, you see them. Don't be shy to mail and say, ask the questions, and somewhere you're enabling your own skills, but you're also building a network. Absolutely. I mean, there's a BASA is one of the student organizations on campus who are actively organizing events. There's many more, but go to those events. Attend them. Go and speak to the guest speakers. Don't be shy to introduce yourself and build those networks.
Yeah. All right. On to the next question. A lot of the time, there's always a debate about whether students should first pursue further studies or gain work experience. What would be your take on that? Prof. Nkuhlu, let's start with you.
Yeah. Well, in our profession, we encourage students to do their studies and obtain their professional qualification and then go and find work. Because we believe that that's less onerous on the students. But I don't regret the way that I was trained.
Yes.
During our time, you had to do your articles after matric whilst you're doing your degree, or possibly latest after you have obtained your degree, before you do your final exams, you do your articles. There was value in that, but those students, I think possibly, in my view, we must work harder as a country and more collaborate more between the government and the private sector, and manage the funds that are available much more efficiently, and so on, and make it as comfortable as possible for youngsters to enjoy their learning. They just do their studies first, and really give them as much support as possible. And again, those who are interested and are capable, allow them to do their master's degrees and do their doctorates.
Okay.
And you know, that will be. But don't this thing of. I believe that if as a country we can be much more committed to supporting education as the most important enabler of development, and invest appropriately and prioritize appropriately, we would be able to do what I'm saying. We'll mobilize enough resources from the private sector and the government to make it possible for youngsters. But again, this thing of having more streams becomes very, very important in that, because if you are going to do that, you know, there's no point if a student is not talented or has no interest to follow all the way to go to university to get tertiary qualifications. Students must be given the same support to go and do a technical college, TVET college, and be given support to actually succeed the quality and relevant training there.
Yes.
Because that's another thing that, you know, is of great concern. Is just ensuring that we don't only focus on ensuring high levels of quality at universities. Those technical colleges or TVET colleges are as important, because if our system works the way it should, a larger proportion of our grade 12 graduates should be going there. And then if we want them to be successful citizens who can be entrepreneurs, we must make sure that that education they get there is of an acceptable quality, and the learning there that is offered is relevant.
Yes.
In other words, you don't have many TVET colleges only find that all of them are teaching marketing and public relations.
All
Yeah.
right. And then finally, just to close off the conversation, what advice would you give to students and young professionals who aspire to become leaders and change makers in the fields of business and accounting? I think then I'll start with Prof. Moloi.
For me, just three things.
Yes.
You stay grounded, so you stay hungry, and then just keep motivated. Those are three, things that I would give the students. So then feet on the ground. So then always dream big and stay motivated. So without motivation, then it's just difficult to do anything. So then those would be three advices that I would give the students.
All right. And for you, Prof. Mark?
I think also be mentally strong, because there's many challenges. Be mentally strong, be agile, never doubt yourself, and be kind to yourself, because life is tough.
Life is tough,
and
yes.
working and studying and then going and work, it's not easy, but nothing that's worthwhile is easy.
Yeah.
And just continue working and believing in yourself and never give up.
Wonderful.
No, I subscribe to that. No, I have nothing to add.
All
But
right.
thank you very much.
Wonderful.
It's been a great.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for the
It was
opportunity.
a wonderful
Thank you.
conversation.
Yes.
I'm not in the accounting field, but I've learned so much from you, and I can apply the things that you've said within my field in communications. So I appreciate, and thank you very much for having this conversation with me.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And with that, we close off this episode of In Conversation on UJTV. Thank you for joining us.